However, that's the wrong thing. We don't want to be asking that. We want to be asking, are we in a housing crisis? And the answer to that is a big, fat. Are we right now in a housing recession? Well, let's take a look at it and compare some things from right now to the housing recession we saw back in 2008. And there are a few different things you want to look for to see if we are actually in a housing recession. First thing you want to know, or one of the things you want to know, have sales fallen? The answer is yes. Sales have fallen this year from where they were at. 2, what about new home start builds? Are those on the increase? Are those neutral? Or are those the decrease? Well, those are decreasing, just like they were. Now, how about jobs in the housing sector? Well, jobs are being lost in the housing sector. Now, what about incomes in the housing sector? Well, I'm gonna have to ask you and other realtors that you may know, how are your incomes right now compared to how they were? The answer is it's probably decreased, or at least statistically is decreased for most. So we're seeing all of the signs right now. We have sales that are lower. We have new starts for new home construction have decreased. Jobs are being lost by the thousands and incomes are down. So the answer is yes, right now we are in a housing recession. However, that's the wrong thing. We don't want to be asking that. We want to be asking, are we in a housing crisis? And the answer to that is a big fat no. We are not in a housing crisis. A lot of people want to point, say, hey, we're going right back to where things were in 2008. We're in a housing recession. It's going to be a crisis and all of that. Well, it's not. Let me explain a few things, a couple things that we want to know with absolute certainty. And I want to focus on 2 things. Let's first talk about inventory. Right now, inventory, there's about 1.1 million homes for sale on the market. Now, if we go back to 2007, right before that big, huge collapse, do you know how many homes were on the market? It wasn't 1.1 or 1.5 or 2 or even 3. It was 4 million homes were on the market. So there was so much more inventory on the market than there is right now, the law of supply and demand. Now, what's the other big thing? It has to do with the credit profiles of the borrowers. You go back to that housing crisis that we had, those 4 million homes, a lot of those were backed by really bad mortgages given to people that should never have bought a home with little to no equity. They didn't have the financial capacity to even make those payments. That's not what is happening right now. Even though we're seeing values decrease, the large majority of homeowners are still above water by a lot. We have record high amount of equity in homes right now. So while we technically are in a housing recession, we are not in a housing crisis. And that's a key difference. So when people are freaking out, well, you don't have to worry. We're not in a housing crisis. We are nowhere near the inventory that we had, and we didn't have the loans that were being done back then. So don't think of this as doom and gloom. This is great opportunity. 2023 is going to be a fantastic year. There's still a lot of pent-up demand out there, and if the interest rates decrease, you're going to see that demand further increase, which is going to help us get right back on track. Whether you move one time in your life or you move dozens of times in your life, moving's a pain in the butt. It can be very stressful. And that stress level only increases if you're moving out of state or moving across country. And now that more and more people are able to work from home, more and more people are deciding to move to a different state. Well, I came across this really cool article on Realtor.com that gives 5 different tips that you can share with your buyers if they're moving across state boundaries or moving across the country to help lower the stress levels. And let's talk about these. The first one is to consider the date or the week that you are moving. Now, there are 4 weeks in a month. The busiest 2 weeks for moving companies and moving are the first week of the month and the last week of the month. So if a buyer is able to do it, have them look at moving the second or third week in the month. They would have more options if they're using a moving company, which means it's going to have lower costs on there, and they're going to have less hassle. Second big thing to look at is for them to really consider a big purge on what they are going to actually move. Go through everything. What things do they absolutely know for certain that they want to keep? Or what are things that they can donate and get a nice tax reduction on there, deduction on there, or things that they could maybe sell on the Facebook marketplace. So reduce the amount of things that they're needing to move. The next thing, the third thing, is to do your research. Do you want to self-move? Move everything yourself, rent a U-Haul or something like that? Or do you want to have a full service moving company? Or do you want to have a partial service? for them to do their research, and they might find the cost of having a full service really isn't that crazy and might be worth it for them to lower their stress levels. The fourth thing is, kind of goes with number 3, is budget. If you are going to hire a moving company or you are going to move across the country and do it yourself on there, what is your firm budget? And what you want to do is, if you're working with the moving company, you want to get a bid that is a not to exceed bid, where it might not be an exact cost of what it's going to be, but they will give you a firm number that it will never increase more. Because when you're moving, the last thing you want is unexpected bills, right? Or things to be higher than what you're anticipating. Now, the last thing is to get moving insurance. Now, if they were to hire a company, they do have to provide moving insurance on there. And there's really 2 different types. There's full value coverage and there's released value coverage. Full value coverage is going to, if something gets broken during the move on there, is going to replace the item or to give you the amount back that the value is worth. Release value is only covering a percentage of how much it actually weighs. So in my opinion, this is just my opinion, a full value coverage policy would be the best. Now, why would you want to make sure you have moving coverage? Again, it's peace of mind. Hopefully you never actually need it, but if one of your valuables get broken or lost or stolen or something like that, you know that you have it covered. So here's 5 tips for you that you can share with your buyers that have been moving across the country.
Let's go over some rates. So rates have been rising. We all know that. What's happened as a result of all these rising rates? Well, people can't buy homes, right? Millions of people have not been able to afford homes. But guess what? Rates are starting to go back down. So what's going to happen? Guys, don't get rid of your real estate license. Get ready to start farming, because millions of buyers are going to be coming back on the market as rates start to decrease. Are you guys ready to hear about inventory? Opportunities. Inventory looks like it might be back on the rise. Let's watch it really close over the next few months, because in 2023, maybe even by 2024, we can expect inventory levels to start rising back up again, which means more home sales for all of us.